The operator of the Fukushima Daiichi plant is again inserting a camera into one of its damaged reactors. Workers at TEPCO are trying to get a better look inside the number 2 reactor. Crews used an industrial endoscope in January to look inside the containment vessel. They obtained images of parts of the walls and pipes, but they were unable to see the contaminated water at the bottom. Their fiber optic line was not long enough. This time, workers will insert a longer line to monitor the surface conditions and temperature of the water. They'll also put a dosimeter inside to measure radiation levels on and near the walls. TEPCO spokespersons say they want to confirm that the fuel that melted and fell to the bottom of the vessel is being properly cooled.
They can't fix Fukushima fuck you proper.
They say the radiation checks will be useful in developing the equipment needed for the complete shutdown of the reactors.
They know they can't fix Fukushima, and they know it's killing everybody.
The operator of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant says cooling water in one of the facility's damaged reactors is much shallower than previously thought. Tokyo Electric Power Company confirmed on Monday that the water is 60 centimeters deep by inserting an endoscope into the number 2 reactor. The survey was the second at the reactor since January. The firm has been injecting nearly 9 tons of water per hour into the reactor to cool melted fuel that fell to the bottom of the reactor's containment vessel. The low level indicates that water continues to leak into the reactor building through suppression chambers under the vessel. The utility says the fuel is still being cooled as the water temperature remains at around 48 degrees Celsius. The latest findings suggest that decommissioning the reactor could be much harder than expected. They
can't do a damn thing about Fukushima for at least 1,000 years.
The firm may need to repair the vessel so it can be filled with water to block strong radiation.
The IAEA, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the President of the United States, and they all know that this is the methodology in which they're going to use to destroy the populace of the planet Earth.
Tokyo Electric Power Company says about 80 liters of contaminated water has leaked into the sea near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The water contains radioactive strontium.
Plus, the nuclear core, in all likelihood, all 3 of them melted down into the groundwater.
TEPCO employees found a break in a pipe on Monday morning. It took the workers 20 minutes to stop the leak. The firm estimates that 120 tons of water escaped. It says 80 liters reached the ocean via a sewer system.
They can't fix Fukushima proper.
TEPCO says it's building a safety barrier for the sewer, but it's still under construction and was unable to stop the spill. A similar incident occurred at the plant last December.
The nuclear fissionable materials that are coming out of Fukushima are thousands and thousands and thousands of times more powerful than what happened in Chernobyl.
A non-governmental organization studying the global use of nuclear materials has given poor ratings to North Korea, Pakistan, and Iran. The U.S.-based group Nuclear Threat Initiative ranked 32 countries that own at least 1 kilogram of material that can be used to make nuclear weapons. The report assessed how countries manage and transport nuclear materials and whether they follow international rules. Australia ranked highest. It gained 94 out of a possible 100 points. North Korea ranked lowest with 37 points. Group members pointed out that Pyongyang hadn't signed on to any international treaties.
Well, I think of North Korea with its last place ranking as a country that really has to do the most in terms of assuring the international community that it's taking its stewardship of nuclear materials seriously.
Iran and Pakistan ranked just above North Korea. Japan was 23rd. The report raised alarms about an increase in mixed oxide fuel that could be used to make nuclear weapons.
They are screwing us because they know we're all going to die from this.
Come back to your homes. It's okay. Nothing to worry about. Radiation is good for you. Big time. It's okay. Cold shutdown. Cold shutdown. Cold shutdown. Cold shutdown. It's good for you. Plutonium glows green. Come back to your home. Not so many battles. Nothing to worry about. It's good for you. It's okay. That's some shit.
Hi, Kevin Blanche. I was going to wait and go get my tripod, find it, try to put this up. This is fresh out off the wire. Holy cow, these Lion TEPCO evil motherfuckers. It's out fresh, brand new off the wire. There's China syndrome going on right now. It's been going on the whole time. In December, the IEA confirmed, that the reactor had 10 meters of water on the spent fuel rods and the core, that it was cooled. They just went in, TEPCO admitting themselves, went in with their scope today. Less than 2 feet. Do you know what that means? Less than 2 feet? They said that it is fusion and it is splattering on the wall in there. This is China syndrome. This is the first time in the history of the world this has happened. And you fucking experts can say, oh, this ain't China syndrome. Just like you fuckhead Arnie Gunderson and the rest of you fucking phony pricks the day I put up my video and told me I didn't know a hydrogen balloon from a hydrogen balloon. Well, why don't you tell me this isn't China syndrome? This is fucking China syndrome. It is going on right now. It's been going on the whole time. The most evil chemicals that could possibly be released have been released the whole time. No wonder I got fucking leukemia. As Utahns, we are full of it anyway from the open air test. It is accumulating. Is it accumulative? I'll put up more information on this as I gather it. This is brand new. CBS News is reporting it. That 2 feet, less than 2 feet on top of the cores and the ponds, you know what that means? That means this is fully, we're talking over a year. The IEA just meet, 2 days ago, come up with their conclusion. There are 44 experts, whatever, and their conclusion, quote, our work is done. Wow, these evil, evil fucks. These lying fucks. And I hope Gunderson and all you fucking IEA and all you so-called come at me again, just like you did the day of March 12th when I put up that video saying this is a full core meltdown. And this, hey, no wonder I have leukemia. It's a wonder the whole fucking world doesn't have fucking leukemia. This is China syndrome. It's on. It's on. These lying fuckers, this is going to be a major fucking story. They've been lying the whole time. Like I said in my first video, fucking entomb the motherfucker, entomb the motherfucker, entomb the motherfucker already. Obama, the United States government, the UN, fuck the fucking treaties. Fuck them. Go in. Go in. Send the Navy. This is a worldwide catastrophic fucking nightmare. These Japanese fuckers just continue to lie. The IAEA is doing nothing. We have nobody. Go in. Send the United States Air Force. Fuck these Japanese lying motherfuckers and go in and entomb the fucker now. Entomb it. Entomb it. I'm telling you. I'm telling these lying fuckers. We're over a year later. Over a year later, and it's still on. I'll post the article. This is China syndrome. The first time in the history of the world. Do you have any idea of the implications? Oh, fuck, I do. Oh, fuck. No wonder I have leukemia. Kevin Blanche.
The operator of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has released video footage taken inside the containment vessel of one of the damaged reactors. It was the second time since January that the operator has succeeded in getting into the reactor. Tokyo Electric Power Company used an endoscope to check the water level inside the reactor on Monday. The depth of the water had been thought to be about 3 meters, but was actually only about 60 meters, or rather 60 centimeters. The footage shows the endoscope reaching the water's surface after being lowered about 6 meters into the number 2 reactor vessel. Floating matter thought to be peeled paint and rust can be seen floating on the surface. The operator says it is not melted nuclear fuel. But the firm could not identify areas of damage in the vessel. The utility also detected extremely high levels of radiation, measuring 72,900 millisieverts per hour. Any human exposed to this amount of radiation would die within 7 minutes. It's the first time since last year's accident that it has been able to directly monitor inside the vessel. The high radiation and low water levels are a setback for efforts to scrap the reactor. The utility says it does not plan to conduct endoscope surveys in the plant's number 1 and 3 reactors because of the continuing high levels of radiation.
What the fuck?
Japanese scientists will launch a project to study the mechanism of the March 11th earthquake. The Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, or JAMSTEC, will dispatch a deep-sea drilling vessel on Sunday. Researchers from JAMSTEC and Kyoto University will be on board. They'll examine the seabed 220 kilometers off the Oshika Peninsula in Miyagi Prefecture. The plate in the area moved 50 meters when the quake occurred.
We'd like to study how the plate moved so much and how the tsunami occurred. We want to learn from the lessons for the future.
Researchers will lower the drill 7,000 meters below the surface of the ocean and then dig 1,000 meters into the Japan Trench. They will collect rock samples from the seabed. They'll also gauge the temperature to calculate the energy generated from the sliding plates.
That was bullshit.
Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda has called on world leaders to share the lessons the country learned from last year's accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Noda spoke during a working lunch at the Nuclear Security Summit. And he said Japan learned 3 lessons from the Fukushima accident: the importance of being prepared, respecting the judgment of people at the scene, and that the security can be achieved only through constant efforts.
The primary purpose of my participation was to share with the rest of the world the lessons Japan has learned from the nuclear accident. I wanted to highlight Japan's efforts to secure nuclear safety within the country and around the world.
The Prime Minister said these lessons can also be applied to terrorist attacks on nuclear facilities. Noda said Japan was shackled by the myth that nuclear plants are absolutely safe. He stressed that everyone who is responsible for nuclear safety should be aware there is no such thing as absolute safety. And he said the most difficult but most important task for leaders is to pass on the lessons to future generations.
Well, President Obama, Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda, and a host of other leaders have wrapped up a nuclear security summit. The meeting in Seoul ended with a statement reaffirming the commitment to a number of goals: nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation, and the effort to secure nuclear materials by 2014 are among them. The statement comes from leaders of 53 nations and representatives of international organizations. The document says they'll aim to strengthen nuclear security, reduce the threat of nuclear terrorism, and prevent materials from getting into the hands of terrorists.
이제 우리는 핵 테러 없는 보다 더 안전하고 평화로운 세상을 만드는데 새로운 이정표를 만들었습니다.
The statement says leaders will aim to announce voluntary actions by 2013 to minimize the use of highly enriched uranium. The substance can be used for nuclear weapons. The document also referred to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident and called for a better preparation for emergencies. Barack Obama has implored North Korean leaders to have the courage to pursue peace. He vowed to increase the pressure on Pyongyang to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. And he made the same promise for the leaders of Iran. Obama made the remarks to university students in Seoul ahead of a summit on nuclear security. Obama called on North Korean leaders to refrain from provocative acts for the sake of their own prosperity. He urged them to work with the international community.
By now, it should be clear. Your provocations and pursuit of nuclear weapons have not achieved the security you seek. They have undermined it.
On Iran's nuclear program, Obama said time is running out for diplomacy. He urged Iranian leaders to abide by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Obama also prodded Russia. He said he'd seek discussions with Moscow with the aim of reducing not only strategic nuclear warheads, but also tactical weapons and warheads in reserve. Obama said he plans to discuss this with returning Russian President Vladimir Putin when they meet in May. Obama set expectations high in a speech in Prague 3 years ago when he declared it was time to seek a world without nuclear weapons.
Leaders from around the globe are trying to find common ground on an issue that spreads beyond borders. They've started work on their second day of the Nuclear Security Summit in Seoul. Representatives of 53 countries are calling for international cooperation to prevent nuclear materials from falling into the wrong hands. US President Barack Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda are among those taking part in the discussions. South Korean President Lee Myung-bak opened the meeting noting that terrorism has no borders. He said damage from nuclear terrorism will not be limited to one country. The leaders are believed to be looking at the mechanisms for reinforcing how they manage nuclear materials. They want to ensure those substances don't get into the hands of terrorists. They'll also discuss how to prevent attacks on nuclear plants and how best to manage them in light of the Fukushima disaster. They'll release a communique later in the day, and President Lee is expected to speak about what they've accomplished. The summit delegates also addressed North Korea's plan to launch a rocket next month. They hope to convince the country to abandon its plan. NHK World's Ryoji Ito has more from Seoul.
The leaders were turning up the pressure on North Korea on Monday. US President Obama took the strongest stance. He said there will be no reward for provocations. South Korean President Lee Myung-bak has called for more pressure on North Korea. Both countries are urging China and Russia to use their influence to stop the launch. Russia has urged the North Korea to exercise self-restraint. China says it's making similar efforts. But North Korea is likely to press on with the launch. If new leader Kim Jong-un is seen giving to external pressure, he risks losing the support of the military. We should focus instead on how China reacts to the launch. The country opposes any attempt to destabilize the Korean peninsula. If China continued to send economic and political assistance to its neighbor, the North may be able to weather the storm. The key will be how much countries like Japan, the US, and South Korea can persuade China to back their position.
My heart goes into my mouth when I hit that button.
訓練、ただいま地震が発生しています。ただいま地震が発生しています。まだ揺れています。まだ揺れています。注意してね。はい。警察署ごめんください。警察署来てください。揺れは収まりました。福島県浜通りの震度は6強です。以上。あと怪我人がいないから確認お願いします。はい。前半からもう怪我人ないか確認してください。はい。現場出向者の確認お願いします。現場出向者の確認お願いします。火はさんの確認お願いします。発電なのでプラント状況パラメータ確認をするよう指示します。ホワイトボード持ってきて。電源関係につきましてもタイプ内の状態確認をするよう指示します。じゃあ電源関係、現場の状況をお願いしました。パラメータ状態確認、電源状態確認、水処理、モルトは怪我人いません。怪我人なし、了解。不協和承知しました。まず範囲、作業員がこの通り震度6強でございます。高台を中心に路中ポンプ、水関係の確認を実施いたします。プラントパラメータ次は警備情報をお願いいたします。発電所の入庫の制限をお願いします。了解しました。正門にゲートできたのを進めます。
It is the 28th of the 3rd, 2012, and this is today's climate change update. Not a lot really going on climate-wise, report-wise today, so it's going to be pretty quick. The extinction protocol, double emissions of gas and steam erupt from Costa Rica's Turrialba volcano. Two large steam and gas emissions were spotted Tuesday morning atop the volcano in the province of Cartago. The residents said two gas columns measured nearly a kilometer in height and are moving towards the north face of the volcano. These gases are mostly water vapor, 90%, and the rest are volcanic gases. So yet another volcano gearing up in Costa Rica. Massive CME expelled on the far side of the sun. Transisting the far side of the sun, never say die sunspot AR1429 is still very, very active sunspot. It is not Earth directed, but it is still putting on one heck of a show as the sun is gearing up for maximum. And they have videos, of course, on that. That's about all new they have going on. The only other climate thing I want to cover today is on Ice Age Now. Up to 4 feet of snow for Northern California. And Mount Rainier is expecting 125 inches, more than 10 feet of snow by Friday night. Now the California snow is supposed to be above 5,000 feet kind of thing. And here it is, almost 80 degrees here in Des Moines. Over to the nuclear stuff, let's go to E&E News. High radiation means delays in decommissioning Fukushima Daiichi. 30-year roadmap will likely now have to be revised. I think people will have entire careers cleaning up this mess for generations. And plutonium is as plutonium does. Japan radiation professor, Fukushima City needs to be evacuated. A lot more than Fukushima needs to be evacuated. Probably the entire northern half of that island. Suppression chamber may have been destroyed at reactor number 2. This is AKA China Syndrome, kids. Kevin Blanche, I'm going to attach a video he put out, I believe yesterday, saying, we've been telling you this has been China Syndrome for a long time, and this is mass murder. And I'm with you, Kevin. Fuck them. Kyoto hints TEPCO's long-term plan, decommission Fukushima may be in jeopardy. Melted fuel may not be covered in water. For shallower than assumed, TEPCO still claiming Fukushima Daiichi in the state of cold shutdown. China Syndrome, and it's been going on. They need to pack this thing in sand and concrete and entomb it. They're killing us all. They're killing us all. Fukushima reactor in crisis again. Renewed concerns about plant stability. I'm going to take you over to Daily News Fukushima Diary. Elementary school has their students search for hotspot around the school. Now bear in mind this is a translated piece. Japanese elementary school have their students measure radiation at a class, and one of them found a hotspot on the roof of the building. The school is in Hayama near Kamakura. In the end, they removed the contaminated soil and leaves to bury underground. You got kids. Increasing black substances found in Tokyo. Possible black substances in Tokyo. More reports are coming up about black substances in Tokyo. A lot of the amount is spreading in belt-shaped. So I'm not really sure, but I know we have reports out where the molecules are combining to make new radioactive substances. New things are abound, and we've had those big radiation spikes in Tokyo this last weekend. So no telling what's going on. Kevin, I love you, brother, man. Good luck in your fight. Keep swinging. I know you're a fighter. I will link it to his video on this one. Do sub Kevin supporting. Other than that, enjoy while you can. It's a beautiful day. Thanks, everybody.
I mean, you know, whatever I do, I make national news. When I put people in pink underwear, I always make national news. But this one, they don't want to talk to the sheriff.
Detected radiation levels of 70 sieverts an hour will kill a human after 7 minutes of exposure, and are 10 times higher than experts had been hoping. Levels are even higher in reactors 1 and 3.
Anybody with common sense look at it and say, wait a minute, you know, we better get another system going to make sure this doesn't happen again. So it's only common sense.
Technicians have done something they haven't done since the accident last March at Fukushima Daiichi. They measured radiation inside the number 2 reactor. They found the levels were extremely high. Technicians with Tokyo Electric Power Company placed a dosimeter inside the reactor's containment vessel. They say radiation levels increased as they lowered the instrument. This suggests nuclear fuel melted down and collected at the bottom of the vessel. The dosimeter registered a maximum of 72.9 sieverts per hour. A person exposed to those levels would die within about 7 minutes. The technicians also learned that the water used to cool the reactor is only 60 centimeters deep. They thought the level was about 3 meters. TEPCO officials suspect the suppression chamber at the bottom of the vessel may have been destroyed.
But there's a lot of politics involved. People don't want to even talk about it.
A nuclear expert says the new findings at the number 2 reactor may slow down the work to decommission the Fukushima Daiichi plant.
It's like the plague to talk about this.
Masanori Naito says TEPCO's next job is to find out where the water leakage is occurring. The utility will have to develop radiation-resistant cameras and new robots.
Everybody wants to ignore this subject.
It is going to be a hard task to find the damaged parts that are causing water leakage in the containment vessel. That's because the vessel has a large surface area.
Most of the questions in that press conference on March 1 wasn't about the evidence. They didn't want to talk about that.
Contamination from the Fukushima accident may force fishermen in a neighboring prefecture to suspend the catches of one of their favorite species. Catches of Japanese sea bass may become the first marine products of Miyagi Prefecture north of Fukushima to be suspended. Contamination of up to 360 becquerels of radioactive cesium per kilogram has been detected in sea bass hauls over the past 2 months off the coast of Miyagi. The levels exceed the stricter government limits that will begin next month. The new maximum allowable levels will be 100 becquerels per kilogram. Miyagi Prefecture and fisheries cooperatives are considering asking fishers in the prefecture to voluntarily refrain from catching the fish.
It's old. This has been already done. You know, this is old stuff. Why don't they talk about the evidence? Nobody's talking about the evidence.
Japanese scientists are cautious about possible earthquakes near the country's nuclear plants. They say many faults have become more active since last year's massive quake, and there's a risk they could shift simultaneously, triggering bigger earthquakes. Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency has asked the operators of 6 plants to re-examine the active faults near their facilities.
And there seems to be a national blackout on this.
The agency's expert panel has been studying the possibility of faults more than 5 kilometers apart becoming active at the same time. The phenomenon had been considered unlikely until the March 11th disaster. 3 of the nuclear power plants, Mihama, Tsuruga, and Monju, lie in Fukui Prefecture. The panel points to the possibility of simultaneous fault activity damaging the plants. The agency has also requested reviews of 3 other facilities in Niigata, Ishikawa, and Shimane Prefecture, all along the Sea of Japan. Panel members and seismic engineer Tsuyoshi Takada cautions prudence.
There is no absolute safety guarantee with nuclear power. The government and power companies should explain the exact circumstances to local residents.
Results of the reassessment phase could force a revision of quake resistance standards at the plants. They could also affect the design of stress tests required for restarting currently idle plants.
since everybody else seems to avoid the issue.
Officials in Fukushima Prefecture are set to pay cash to residents for the emotional distress caused by the accident. The payments will go to people in municipalities farther away from the plant who are not eligible for full compensation from TEPCO. The officials say they'll pay about $2,400 each to pregnant women and children aged 18 and younger. Those payments would cover people in the western part of the prefecture. They'll pay about $1,200 to expectant mothers and children in southern prefecture, or rather southern Fukushima. TEPCO has promised to pay those people about $2,400 each. Prefectural officials say they'll also pay about $480 to everyone else in western and southern Fukushima.
We seem to be getting some rain today, so give her background you're looking at. We'll put the paper towel and fold it. Looks like 8 times. 9 times background. Lots of strikes. Does seem to be staying high and beeping. Today, March 28th, 2012. In the rain. It keeps on going, eh? Take care, folks.
radiation fallout forecast for Wednesday, March 28, 2012. In Canada, scattered rain is occurring in the following Canadian cities: Vancouver, Calgary, Sudbury, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec, and St. John's. The jet stream and water vapor analysis places BC and Alberta at highest risk, and southern Ontario, including Toronto. In the U.S., significant precipitation is occurring in the following states: California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. This area also coincides with the jet stream and water vapor maps. On the other side of the country, a strong band of storms moving south-southeast coincides with other risk factors in Kentucky, West Virginia, and Maine. These areas are all under high potential fallout risk as well. In Europe, significant precipitation is forecasted for Finland, Norway, and Sweden, as well as Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Southern France may see rain also. The jet stream will be pushing down through Europe and coincides for Scandinavia, making it the area of highest potential fallout. Nuke report. In Fort Calhoun, Nebraska, there was an off-site notification due to an inadvertent siren actuation. At the Arkansas nuclear plant, it was discovered that the spent fuel handling machine is not fully qualified for a seismic event. Current seismic analysis indicated a lack of margin for several structural parts of the machine. At the Harris Power Plant in North Carolina, it was discovered that ventilation was not functioning properly for 3 separate incidents in the Emergency Operations Facility. The report does not indicate whether employees were exposed. At Shared Medical Technologies in New Richmond, Wisconsin, a radioactive perfusion kit burst into flames while a patient was undergoing a lung perfusion test. The patient received burns to their head and face and was treated in a nearby emergency room. There is no indication of what caused this event. At MIT's research reactor in Cambridge, Massachusetts, an emergency shutdown occurred. When they attempted a restart, the reactor began to overheat and had to be manually shut down again. Investigation into this event is ongoing. In Salem, New Jersey, a discharge of sewage of approximately 2,000 gallons overflowed to a local river. And in Byron, Illinois, an electrical problem was discovered with the emergency diesel generator. The Unit 2 remains in cold shutdown while this is repaired. To report a safety concern about a reactor near you, please call the NRC hotline at 800-695-7403. I encourage anyone living by any of the mentioned power plants to contact their local news affiliate to cover these stories. This message has been brought to you by Radchick and the Orion Talk Radio Network. We care about you because your government doesn't. Stay safe.
じゃあもう一度画面を見てください。コンクリート、その下の原子の格納容器、そして圧力容器の
Japan's Atomic Energy Commission has proposed 3 ways to dispose of the spent nuclear fuel from the country's nuclear plants. The commission has been reviewing Japan's nuclear energy policy since last year's accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. A working group revealed the 3 options on Wednesday. The first proposal calls for a continuation of an ongoing recycling project that involves reprocessing plutonium from spent nuclear fuel into uranium-plutonium mixed oxide fuel. The fuel could then be used in a fast breeder nuclear reactor once the reactor enters practical use. The second proposal calls for abandoning all fast breeder reactor research and fuel recycling and burying the spent fuel deeply underground. The third calls for storing the fuel for the time being and deciding within 20 years whether to use it in fast breeder reactors or bury it. The Commission plans to select one of the measures by the middle of this year.
What's so funny now?
I sometimes just think funny things.
The operator of the disabled Fukushima nuclear power plant will begin monitoring radioactive contamination off the coast of the no-entry zone by collecting samples of marine life. Tokyo Electric Power Company made the decision in response to requests by fishing cooperatives and researchers who have been calling for full-fledged studies into the impact of radioactive contamination on marine life in the area. Fishing is banned within a 20-kilometer radius of the plant. TEPCO says it will collect fish and seashell samples from 20 locations within the zone. It will study what kind of radioactive materials the catch contains and the density of radioactivity. Similar studies have already been conducted beyond the 20-kilometer radius, but this is the first time that a survey is being carried out within the zone.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship.
Well, one of the scariest things about radioactivity is that you can't see it. But Japanese researchers have now created a digital camera that can record radiation in the environment. Tokyo Electric Power Company, the operator of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, commissioned the super wide-angle camera. The camera was developed by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA. It uses gamma-ray technology originally designed for space probes. A gamma-ray detector inside the camera shows levels of radiation on buildings and the landscape in 6 colors according to intensity. The prototype camera can shoot at an angle of nearly 180 degrees. That's 3 times wider than existing models. Sample images taken in February show a wide area of radioactive cesium contamination on the ground and wall of a supermarket in Iitate village within the evacuation zone.
Hold it!
Professor Tadayuki Takahashi of the Space Agency says his team is working to make the camera lighter so it can help in environmental decontamination operations.
Tokyo Electric Power Company has asked the government for additional public fund injections. That is to boost its capital and help compensate the victims of the accident at its Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant.
TEPCO is going through extremely severe business conditions, and it's getting worse every day.
TEPCO applied for about $12 billion to a government-backed fund on Thursday to boost its capital. It also asked for around $10 billion to bolster its reserves for compensation. The capital infusion is part of a business revitalization plan TEPCO is putting forward, but it is still pending whether the request will be approved, as the government is asking for a controlling stake in the utility in exchange for the capital injection. But the firm's management wants to maintain its independence as a private entity.
First your ass is backed up, now the toilet's backed up, and if you're not going to have the right attitude about it, fuck it, I'll just shit on you.
A Swiss insurance company has estimated that natural disasters last year created a record $370 billion in global economic losses. Swiss Re said in a report issued on Wednesday that the March 11th earthquake and tsunami in northeastern Japan accounted for $210 billion, or roughly 57% of the total. Flooding in Thailand caused losses of $30 billion, while a quake on the South Island of New Zealand cost some $15 billion. The insurance firm said global losses for 2011 exceeded those of 2008, which totaled $281 billion. A significant part of those costs came from a massive earthquake in China's Sichuan province. The insurance bill from Japan's disaster is currently estimated at $35 billion, the largest for any earthquake to date. Tokyo Electric Power Company has revealed that the March 11th damaged a critical only a minor change in nuclear fuel likely melted down. Is trying to identify the cause of damage by the quake. Nuclear fuel likely melted down. May also have been damaged by the quake. Nuclear fuel likely melted down. May also have been damaged by the quake. Nuclear fuel likely melted down. May also have been damaged by the quake. Nuclear fuel likely melted down. May also have nuclear fuel. Nuclear fuel likely. TEPCO says the drop in pressure is consistent with analysis that the piping system was damaged. Nuclear fuel likely melted down. They also have the damaged plant's most important safety features.
Now, the utility has not yet found the cause of the stoppage. Only a minor risk of a new hydrogen blast.
It must be damaged.
So unable to function in the system.
It must be damaged.
Playing a key role in the disease.
The fuel must be damaged.
Without external support.
Also, it must be damaged.
Based on the
Fuel must be damaged with analysis that the piping system is damaged by the damaged. Also have been damaged by the
Japan's Atomic Energy Commission has proposed 3 ways to dispose of the spent nuclear fuel from the country's nuclear plants. The commission has been reviewing Japan's nuclear energy policy since last year's accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. A working group revealed the 3 options on Wednesday. The first proposal calls for a continuation of an ongoing recycling project that involves reprocessing plutonium from spent nuclear fuel into uranium-plutonium mixed oxide fuel. The fuel could then be used in a fast breeder nuclear reactor once the reactor enters practical use. The second proposal calls for abandoning all fast breeder reactor research and fuel recycling and burying the spent fuel deeply underground. The third calls for storing the fuel for the time being and deciding within 20 years whether to use it in fast breeder reactors or bury it. The Commission plans to select one of the measures by the middle of this year.
For the first time in a year, residents of 3 out of 11 municipalities near the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant will soon be allowed to visit their homes freely. The easing of the restrictions will begin next month.
No!
The prospect emerged on Friday night as a government nuclear disaster task force led by Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda decided to review the no-entry areas of 3 municipalities. The no-entry zone in Kawauchi village will be split into 2 evacuation zones as a result of the review. There are about 300 residents whose homes are in the no-entry zone. They will be able to visit the area without permission from the central or local governments.
A Festivus for the rest of us!
Work including radiation decontamination will begin ahead of their return.
And instead of a tree, didn't your father put up an aluminum pole?
We must return home as my child will start going to school next year. I hope the decontamination will make progress.
Oh, no, sir. Festivus is all too real, and I could prove it.
This is temporary housing for people from Tamura City. The city's no-entry zone will be reclassified as an area where residents can prepare to eventually return home.
If I have to.
Yeah, you probably should.
This is a step forward for the recovery and rebuilding. I will work together with the residents to find ways to restore their area.
Hey, I hired you to work during the holidays. This is the holidays. But it's Festivus.
The government has also decided to review the zoning of Minami-Soma City, a part of which is inside a no-entry zone. The city will likely be split into 3 areas, including one where there will be long-term restrictions on people moving back to live.
What? You know you're infringing on my right to celebrate new holidays.
Minami-Soma will no longer be part of the no-entry zone from April 16th. The mayor of the city welcomed the decision, but he also expressed concern about the slow pace of decontamination.
That's not a right. Well, it's going to be, because I'm going back on strike.
Many residents still feel anxious, especially about decontamination. The central government needs to provide a guideline.
Happy Festivus!
The zoning of the other 8 municipalities will likely be reviewed next month or later, due to concerns about splitting the communities into 2 or more zones.
Is that the poll? George, Festivus is your heritage.
Residents are also concerned about differences in compensation among the different zones and are dissatisfied with the government over its rebuilding plans.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
Japan's energy policy is at a crossroads. Its leaders once considered nuclear power a stable, clean supply of electricity. But more and more people say it's dangerous after last year's accident at Fukushima Daiichi.
I got a lot of problems with you people!
Reactor after reactor has gone offline for regular maintenance since March 11, 2011. None has gone back online. So now, only 1 out of 54 is running.
Frank, no offense, but this holiday's a little out there.
The government is looking at firing up 2 of the idle reactors. The units passed new, more stringent safety checks. But the idea of restarting them has not won public approval just yet.
Oh, and another piece of the puzzle falls into place.
You a radical, a liberal. Hi, Kevin Blanche. Japan, TEPCO are playing one sick, dangerous game. And for all you people who say I cannot say a sentence without using language, and you can't use my videos because of language, this one's for you. I grew up in Utah, a good Mormon boy when I was a little kid. I taught for 12 years. You think I can't give a lecture without language? Please. I'm passionate about this subject because this is the socioeconomic subject of our time. They're playing one evil, sick game with us. Very evil, sick game. This is so dangerous. What is going on as the lies from TEPCO and Japan. Look, let's review. Let's talk about fission. As I've said, China syndrome is going on. China syndrome is going on. And let me talk about what is China syndrome. China syndrome is nothing more than a contemporized word that was built out of popular culture, as many English words evolve out of popular culture to have meaning. The meaning, China syndrome, means nuclear fission. Not nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. What is nuclear fission? When a core reactor for a nuclear plant does not get cooled for an extended period of time. As those rods melt and they get hotter and hotter and they start to fission together, what happens is, science knows this happens. It creates a power unseen to man. It creates gamma rays of epic proportion. Unseen in Hiroshima. Unseen in the Nevada test site. Unseen in Chernobyl. Look, these things, if this thing blows, if number 2 blows, let's talk about the lies of TEPCO and the lies of the media and the lack of the media even getting there and doing anything, which the writing was on the wall. The lack of TEPCO or the IEAs, they downplayed Chernobyl. Chernobyl was one horrific nightmare. Look, nuclear fallout into the human body is accumulative. Plutonium, cesium, iodine, these things are accumulative. For thousands and thousands of years, they build up in the body. They build up in generationals. They build up in the soil. They build up all through the human body. As it gets into the human body, we all have Chernobyl in us. We all have Fukushima in us. We all have the open air Nevada test in us. It gets stronger. We all have the benzene from the water in us. As it builds up and gets stronger and stronger, it becomes accumulative. It becomes accumulative. You know, I don't think it's any ironic that I end up with leukemia after everything that I've ran. That's my home right there. I'll show you my home when I get done. That's where I live, right there on the 8th floor. But look, TEPCO, well, the story that came out 2 days ago is one major story. Does it prove that they are liars? Yes. Does it prove the IAEA is purely liars and covering the industry? Why would they do that? Because the nuclear industry, they know, is on the ropes. And they know that the nuclear industry is propped up by federal funding, by government money, by ignorance. It is propped up by pure ignorance. If the American public knew, if the world public knew, their jobs are done. They got fat cat, sweet ass positions. They don't do anything. Look. If fission, which we know is going on at 2 now, that's coming right out of their mouths. That's the one that was supposed to be good. Reactor 2 was supposed to be good. It's 3 and 4 the ones that were supposed to be in such evil trouble. This is the one they were ready to put back online. That the IAEA, that in December, everybody says, good, we're ready to put it back together and we'll fire it back up. Seriously, that one has fission going on. Look, if that thing blows, If that thing blows, it's going to put gamma rays into the atmosphere that have been unforeseen in the history. This will be the most catastrophic story in the history of the world, and this is not overstating. This is not overstating. I cannot overstate this enough. Look, I'm not a scientist, but my father was killed to this. I have a PhD, but it's in finance. But I've dug in my whole life to this because I grew up in Utah. You know, we were contemporizers. The downwinders mowed down many of our friends and family. Everybody in Utah knew. Scott Mathis was killed the downwinder. We knew we were downwinders. We were taught it in elementaries, junior high. We were very knowledgeable about this subject matter, all of us as we graduated high school. Well, then my father, the nuclear guinea pig out there, I poured in, I dug in, and I've dug in so deep. I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody on this subject matter anytime. But when these guys come out with this story and says we are lying, they just basically admit we are lying. This thing has been mirror naked the whole time. If it's naked and it's cracked, and they cracked on those gamma rays are already full flight in there. If this thing blows, this reactor tube blows, which it could blow at any time. You know, just like in Russia. Russia spent $18 billion, sent 50,000 men in to tune this. Or that would have been 1,000 times worse than it is, which it is catastrophic. It's been downplayed. The death at Chernobyl is thousands and many thousands of times that has ever been reported by the IAEA. Like I said, that documentary, The Battle of Chernobyl, the greatest quote I think I've ever heard is that woman says in there, the most dangerous thing to come out of that reactor and that meltdown in Chernobyl was not cesium. It was not plutonium. It was lies. Boy, is that the thumbprint of Fukushima. Is that not the thumbprint? The lies are the most, and the lies, we always had the fourth branch of government, the media, always covered us. As Rupert Murdoch has stolen it. Who would ever think Rupert Murdoch could take complete control of a whole world society, which he did it. As he did not win. Think about the implications of that. Think about the implications as he did not win. Bush. Gore won by 60-something freaking electoral. Wasn't even close. That's 30 different outlets reported that Gore won because he did win. And it was Rupert who stopped it and stole it. And everybody just sits back and says, oh, that's okay. Think about the implications. Gore wins. Alito and Robertson are not on the court. There are two liberals that are on the court. The court is probably sitting right now 6-3 liberal. Obamacare would have a full mandate, the whole thing. It wouldn't have been the sloppy, butchered up freaking mess they had. It wouldn't have done it. The Supreme Court has no legitimacy. None. That's coming right out of Byers' mouth. Is that photograph of him coming out of the court will be the iconic thumbprint. Look, it's like you're in a relationship and one tells a lie. You know, one's cheating on the other and it just snowballs and it snowballs and it gets out of proportion. You know, and or you're doing something bad financially and your partner doesn't know. It just snowed. That's what happened here. He stole the election. The lie just it contemporized lying in America. It made lying go in vogue. If you work hard, integrity, hard work, strength, do everything that our parents, our grandparents are, not only do you fail, you probably commit suicide. So a young person, you build up a business, and the guy next to you who's doing the same business is exploiting goods in China, using slave labor. He's cheating the system, paying illegals with a wink and a nod, cash. He succeeds, you fail. We have contemporized and made popular lying, cheating. White-collar crime is not only legal, especially in this state, it is encouraged. We don't punish them. We don't do anything because the big lie was told, and the big lie involved. I mean, this country was built up on honesty, integrity, and hard work. We threw that away. We threw that out of the way. And that's what's going on with the media. The media is falling for it. And I love how the media thinks they are the 1% and thinks they do represent the 1%. There is no 1% in this nightmare. There is no 1%. There is no 1%. You cannot hide. You cannot hide. And the media is just much to blame. TEPCO and the Japanese, what they did to their own people is so grotesque and so sickening and so horrific. They are playing roulette. Japanese Harry-Carry roulette with the world. They're playing the French trench. They're playing the freaking beachhead on freaking D-Day. They're playing this card. And we as the whole world population let them play it. This is the intellectuals of our time in the United States. Well, the whole world for that matter. These are the intellectuals of our time. This is the thumbprint. This is who the echo boomer is. This is who the baby boomer is. These are the smart ones. You people do not care. Why do people not care? I have no idea, but they don't care. It's like I say, no one cared about Vietnam until they got a draft card in the mail. Then they took to the streets. Millions of people are going to get draft cards from Fukushima. And that draft card is going to be called cancer. And you can't run to Canada. There is no Canada. This is a war from hell. I'm in that hospital right there. That's my room. Right there, that building up at the top, that's my room. That's where I live. That's where I get the living chemo at. You know, and I like all you people with your alternative medicine answers. This is acute. Acute means something. This is not chronic. I do not have chronic leukemia. I don't have chronic. This is acute. This is an evil, fast, nasty, aggressive killer. It almost killed me within a few weeks. It is acute. I understand that cannabis works on chronic illnesses. I understand the pain. I understand the diets. But when you're in an acute situation, you are on the verge of death. The only freaking cure for acute AML in the interim is chemo. That's it. You guys can talk all the fairy tale. You know, Rick Simpson is right. You know, he's all right about so much thing, but not in the acute time frame. Over time, yeah. If I would have probably took care of myself better, maybe I would have, you know, maybe if I'd ate iodine and clay the whole time, my whole life, but I didn't know, and I didn't. You know, I don't think hardly anyone has, but I have a really special close friend who is 64 years old, who is the most militant anti-cancer eater there ever was on every freaking diet you guys talk about. She died on Christmas Day of cancer. It is in the air. It is dust in the wind. And if you people don't care about your children, you don't care about future generations, what does it matter with America? What does it matter with the popular opinion? And what does it matter with the whole world? Are we all so lazy that we don't do anything? There's no activism going, Jack, because you can't get close to it. We try, I try. When this thing blows, if this thing blows, this will be the biggest catastrophic nightmare this world has ever seen for thousands of years. And we know that Japan is lying to us. We know the media has been lying to us. They just come out and admitted it. That story that was reported 2 days ago will be the biggest piece of news reported. As the beautiful quote in The Battle for Chernobyl says, the most evil thing to come out of that reactor in Chernobyl was not cesium, was not plutonium, it was lies. Kevin Blanche.
Welcome to Nuked Radio. This is episode 15. Today is Friday, March 30th. And today is Fukushima Venting Day. We have Jules with us and Kurt from Irritate the State and Miss Milky the Clown. But we're having some temporary difficulties with our phone system. Miss Milky and I live in the same area, and we actually have a crazy storm going on over here right now. In fact, there was just this huge flash of light right outside my window. For a second, I thought I was looking at the TEPCO cameras. Someone posted on Radchick this morning that there were some flashes going on a couple hours ago. If any of you guys have the link for that feed, drop it into chat for us, because I couldn't find it. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Christina.
Oh, we have some interesting news. Japan is shaking quite a bit again. Last night there was a 5.1, 44 miles off the coast of the plant. There was also a 4.8 and a 4.6, a 4.5, and a 5.1 all along that fault. And then a few little ones north and south of there. So we'll drop a link to the USGS feed if you guys want to keep track of that this weekend. Any News is reporting. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that's okay. I was just going to say, or you can go out to Fukushima Facts Live Earth and Sky Tools, and you have all the quakes, the USGS link, the volcanoes, the sun stuff, the jet stream, all on one page.
Yeah, the sun is another thing that we need to follow closely, because that very, very active region, 1429, that gave us some trouble a few weeks ago, is just turning around to face us again, and it looks like it's pretty active. There were a couple of flares yesterday, and I like Mr. Comet Watch on YouTube. There's also a Skywatcher, and Dr. Keith Strong, although I'm not sure, he sometimes seems like he's kind of downplaying the events. And something I thought was kind of interesting is he used to be the royal astronomer for the Queen of England. Mancini is reporting the highest radiation level yet, 37 times government limit, detected in river trout caught 40 kilometers from the meltdowns. And Mrs. Milky, you put out a video last night, and I watched it this morning. I wasn't sure that I understood correctly. Are one of the options of getting rid of the spent fuel at the reactors to reprocess it into more MOX fuel? Did I see that right?
You saw it right.
It's just total insanity. I don't know what the Japanese are thinking anymore.
Well, I think they have radiation sickness in the brain.
They have to. I mean, it's just, I'm at a loss for words, really. Fukushima is reported by UPI at risk of a new meltdown. Level of cooling water is 29 feet lower than estimated, 29 feet lower than what TEPCO has been saying it was all along. And there's also a few stories posted. If you know anyone who lives in California, you may want to direct them to any news today. Southern California had 2,500 becquerels of iodine-131 found in seaweed, which is over 500% higher than other tests in the U.S. and Canada. But that's nothing compared to the seaweed that was found outside of the Fukushima reactors. 1 billion becquerels of iodine-131 found in seaweed there. And the ocean group that had come out at the beginning and made all these assumptions that the particles were going to sink and that everything would get diluted, now they're coming out and saying, well, we really didn't do a whole lot of testing. We were kind of just basing everything on theory.
Yeah, they're just guessing. Everything that's happening right now is just one big scary guess.
Did you guys see the report with Nancy Grace? Back in the early days, it was like a week into it. I was looking for Sanjay Gupta stuff for Kevin Blanche, and I ran across a Nancy Grace interview where she said that California had declared a state of emergency.
I remember that, actually.
For the radiation plume?
Yeah. And then it just like, poof, went away. Nobody ever talked about it again.
There was some controversy over that when she first said that she was fear-mongering. And then it just kind of got swept under the rug.
Yeah, that just kind of blew me away when I ran across that.
Another study that was published today on Any News, Fukushima radiation plume contacted North America at California with the greatest exposure in central and southern California. Projected paths of the radioactive atmospheric plume emanated from the Fukushima reactors, best described as airborne particles or aerosols for 131, 137 cesium, and 35S. I don't know what that is. And subsequent atmospheric monitoring showed it coming in contact with the North American continent at California with greatest exposure in central and southern California. Government monitoring sites in Anaheim recorded peak airborne concentrations of 131 at 1.9 picocuries from a baseline of 0. So if you have anybody that's living in that area, you may want to forward some of these articles to them so they're aware of the exposure that they've had and the exposure that they are continuing to have. Also, I wanted to point out to you guys, if you're thinking about getting a Geiger counter, I noticed they've really dropped in price. The soaks that I have, microsieverts, it detects mostly cesium. I paid $176 with shipping. I'm back in December, and they're $136 now.
That's a great price. That's the cheapest I've heard of yet.
Yeah, and it works really well. It's just not as rugged as I would like because I have a tendency to drop things like my phone, and I'm not sure how it would hold up under those conditions. And let's see what else we have going on here. There's a whole bunch of reactor problems being reported on the NRC's website today. Oconee in South Carolina had an off-site notification. A sewage spill in the turbine building that discharges to the Kiowa River. And it looks like 100 gallons got out, at least that's what they're saying. Doesn't say if any of that is radioactive. Browns Ferry in Alabama has an unanalyzed condition with some of its equipment. 9 Mile Point in New York has a non-emergency. They lost their siren system. I don't know what's going on with all these plants and their sirens aren't working. This has happened a couple times at Fort Calhoun recently. Fitzpatrick in New York also had a loss of their tone alert system. So I guess when that happens, what they do is let the local law enforcement know. So if there was some type of situation at the plant, they would probably have to go to door, I would imagine. They have some kind of contingency plan there. So we'll see if we can get our phone problem straightened out. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Hoodwinked by an Angel about how he feels about Fukushima from the 80-day mark. You're listening to Nuked Radio.
Radiation, they tell you it's 200 times the normal limit. Today it's 200 times the normal limit. But it was 200 times the normal limit yesterday, and it'll be 200 times the normal limit tomorrow. So you didn't just get 200 times the normal limit, you got 600 times the normal limit. But I lied to you. I made the number low. You didn't get 600 times the normal limit. You got 1,600 times the normal limit yesterday if you lived in California, let's say. Or if you lived, in Fukushima. If you lived in Fukushima, you might have got 14,000 times the normal limit. But you didn't get 14,000 times the normal limit for one day. You got it for the last 80 days. And have they figured out what the radiation is in proper Fukushima yet? No, they didn't figure it out because they don't give a fuck. They want you fucking dead. That's what they want. They want you fucking dead. They don't care how they kill you. The people in Fukushima, they're getting 16,000 times the radiation today and tomorrow and the day after. That's 48,000 times the radiation in 3 days. And it's going on now for 80 days. When are they going to start telling you what the numbers are? The radiation levels in the sea are more than 30,000 times the amount of radiation that's allowed. That's 30,000 times today and tomorrow. If you went swimming outside proper, where they keep spraying hundreds and thousands of gallons of water on that nuclear power plant every fucking day, if you went out there, you'd be dead in a month. Are you starting to get the point that I'm trying to make here?
That was awesome.
That's Michael Fazio. Check out his YouTube channel, Hoodwinked by an Angel 1. Miss Milky found that clip for me. Just looking through the EPA graphs this morning, I'm going to read the following cities that are near or above hazmat level. Fort Smith, Arkansas. Little Rock also had a bit of a spike. It looks like it's about 150. Phoenix, Arizona. Tucson, Arizona. Yuma, Arizona. Bakersfield is near 300, but not nearly as high as it's been in the past, where it's gone over 1,000 CPMs several times in the last 2 months. I dropped the link into chat if you guys want to look at these yourself. Los Angeles is down. Sacramento is offline. San Diego's down. San Francisco's down. San Jose is blank. Colorado Springs is blank. Denver had a spike, looks like about 5 days ago. Grand Junction, Colorado is down. Hartford, Connecticut is offline. Washington, D.C. is low. Des Moines, Iowa, looks like they pulled that offline too. Idaho Falls, Idaho is about 500 in the last 2 days. Chicago's blank. Fort Wayne, Indiana is just above hazmat in the last 2 days. Kansas City's blank. Wichita's low. Lexington is blank. Louisville is also high. And, boy, there's a lot of these graphs offline. None of the ones in Michigan are working. The only one is Grand Rapids, and it's always low. Miss Milky, did you know we have a research reactor at U of M?
No.
Yeah, I just found that out the other day.
Yeah, they have one at UB, too. University of Buffalo.
In addition, when you hear that we have 104 reactors in the U.S., that's not including the 25 or so that are at colleges. And a lot of times the nuclear physics building is like right next to the football stadium. Springfield, Missouri was really high last weekend. That's when Potterblog was getting 17 times background in the rain. And Billings is offline. Charlotte looks like it's turned way down, as well as Wilmington, Carolina. Bismarck is high. Kearney, Nebraska is high. Lincoln, Nebraska is high. Omaha, Nebraska is high. The jet stream is kind of hovering around the northern states right now. It has been for a few weeks. Albuquerque looks like it's spiking a bit again. Carlsbad, Navajo Lake, and Las Vegas are all offline. Reno is offline. Jules, what has your machine been reading in the last couple weeks? Because I know you were getting spikes last weekend too.
Yeah, this whole week, actually, it's been up and down. You know, I mean, if I look at my graphs, there's been no rhyme or reason to it. It'll be up for 2-3 hits, and then it'll be way down, and then it'll be up. But we're talking, you know, a max of like 18 or 20, so it's not super high. But it's a zigzag. One thing that I wanted to mention, just going back to the research reactors at the university, about 25 years ago, I think I was telling you about my investigation into the leaking reactor at the University of Buffalo, with my nasty phone call telling me to either drop it or something bad would happen to me. One of the things that I discovered is that at these research reactors, they are not under the guise of the NRC. So any leaks, any radioactive waste, at least here in New York State, is the responsibility of the state because it is on state university land. There is no federal intervention.
Well, you know, they're also responsible for their own security. And ABC News did a story, like an undercover story, back in 2005, where they went around and they visited a bunch of these reactors, and there's no security. You can walk in there. They don't check your ID. They don't check your backpacks. And so after ABC News put this story out, the response from the universities were, if we have to provide security, then we're going to have to close down the program because we can't afford it. And nothing was ever done. There still isn't any security there.
That's crazy.
Pierre, South Dakota is really high. It looks like it's about 500. Rapid City, the graphs are down. Knoxville's down. Memphis is down. Nashville is down. Amarillo, they took it off. And, you know, Texas has like 7 or 8 of these graphs, and only 2 of them are working. And they're like these really tiny little bumps, which I know should not be looking that way because the jet stream actually moved down through Texas in the early part of this week. San Angelo, looks like that graph might be working, and it's right at 300. Harrisburg, Virginia, what is going on over there? They get some really big spikes. Looks like within the last week they were up near 500. And Washington State, the only one that's working is Spokane, and they had a little bit of a spike. So that's where we're at with the graphs. I haven't checked the last couple days because I'm running out of batteries. That's the only thing about these Geiger counters. Man, do they burn through the batteries fast. Jules, do you have yours hooked up right to your computer?
My phone or my...
No, your Geiger counter.
No, my Geiger counter is on 9 volt, but the 9 volt lasted about 8 months, and that was 24/7.
Oh, okay. Mine takes like double A's, and it goes through them in about 3 days. Oh, jeez. We'll be back with Nuke Radio.
It's not the way you kiss that tears me apart.
The nuclear fissionable materials that are coming out of Fukushima are thousands and thousands and thousands of times more powerful than what happened in Chernobyl. Plus, the nuclear core, in all likelihood, all three of them melted down into the groundwater, which makes it 4,000 to 5,000 or 10,000 times more powerful than Chernobyl, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what the IAEA and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and this freaking animal in the White House, Blow Obama, this lying bastard, illegal immigrant that we have in the White House, is not telling the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, really pissed off today about this, ladies and gentlemen. Look at what they have done to this beautiful world that we live in. In 100 years, there won't be any life anywhere in America, so to speak, as we know of it now. And it'll be in small, gated communities, in large concrete buildings, because the world will be a nuclear holocaust on steroids because of Chernobyl and because of Fukushima and any other disaster that we have that wipes out the ability to maintain these nuclear power plants. We could have 1, 2, or 10 Fukushimas in America in a matter of hours if we have any one problem, a nuclear bomb, so to speak, dropped in a major city, and 3 or 4 reactors would go offline and melt down and melt through into the water table. See, this is what they're not telling you. Nuclear power was never maintainable. They knew they could never get rid of the nuclear waste. They knew that when they started. They lied to you and said that they would be able to get rid of the nuclear waste, but they never could get rid of the nuclear waste, and they knew they would never be able to get rid of the nuclear waste. The nuclear waste is building up to a point where it can't be maintained, and it has to be maintained for 50,000 years. Who's going to maintain this underground stockpile of nuclear waste and pellets and fissionable materials for 50,000 years? They can't even maintain one nuclear power plant. One catastrophe is destroying the populace of the planet Earth, and we have tens of thousands of times that much nuclear material in the ground, in concrete, in bitumes, entombed in concrete, and the concrete is dissipating. Some of it's already turned into dust, and we can't replace it because we can't get back into the salt mines to replace the concrete. So, ladies and gentlemen, nuclear fissionable materials is how they're going to wipe out the populace of this planet, just like they did in the Incan societies and the Mayan societies, via one methodology or the other. Today's methodology of choice is nuclear radiological catastrophe, because we are in the age of nuclear radiological catastrophes, one after the other, after the other, after the other. It'll be a cascading event. It'll wipe out 93% of this world's population, and this is my hypothesis, and this is what I believe to be the case, ladies and gentlemen.
Again, that's Michael Fazio. So, do we have Shane with us?
Here, here, here.
Hi, Shane.
How are you, Christine?
Good. Tell us what part of the country you live in again.
Well, I'm over here in the Chicago area, okay?
All right. So, did you want to vent today, or you just want to share some thoughts with us?
Yeah, I really appreciate the offer for letting me share some thoughts out there, because there's just so much insanity going on. I just like to throw a little something out there to people to let them know to maybe just think a different way, because things have happened in my life here that always stuck in my brain, and they stick in there for a reason. And the story goes like this. My friend's dad, which I always respect elders, was telling us when he was a kid growing up in the city, and he was telling us how back like in the late 30s and the 40s out in the southwest suburbs, there was a military installation. You know, we got a major road and forest preserves out there. Now it's all open to the public, but back then you could not get anywhere near it. It's a place called Redgate Woods. And this place, from what he told us, was you go over there and you go in the woods, and there's all kind of old buildings and foundations down there out in the middle of the woods. And he goes, that's where they were developing the atomic power stuff, you know, with Oppenheimer and Fermi and all them guys. And this was back in the mid-'80s when me and my buddy just started driving, and we were just like, hey, you pulling our legs? You know, so all right, let's go see if the old man's pulling our legs. Well, we go out there. We go to this place called Red Gate Woods, and we go walking, humping way out in the back of these woods back there. And sure as all get out, we see foundations everywhere. We see fences with barbed wire and all the trees growing through it and everything. And then we come to this one area. It's a big clearing through the woods. And there's this huge stone, big marble stone, like a, marble, just like a tombstone, okay? And then about 10 feet tall, and like a big boulder, and one side's all machined flat, just like a tombstone, and had this whole writing on it, kind of like a Georgia Guidestone deal, just giving you the history of this area. And for the long and the short of it, it says this is where they first started developing nuclear power and things like that. And woo, 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 he, all the info going on. And at the end, it says, and then behind you, in the clearing behind you, in these there's 6 boulders in this clearing behind you, and it says, do not dig here because all the rads that were manifested here and generated here are buried in the ground here. Do not dig there. At that point, me and my buddy looked white as a ghost at each other. We turned around, sure as all heck, there's these 6 stones in this big, huge clearing in a big mound. You can just see that it was a dump site. And we were just, all of a sudden, a wave of fear went through us. We're like, dude, we're dead. Let's get out of here. And what I think is important for me coming from Illinois is because there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of history at the inception. Like I say, just a couple miles down the road is the Argonne National Laboratories, and they have a collider under there. It's a big mile-by-mile, installation over there. And they had just shut that down this year, and they're saying because they got the bigger one out in France or wherever that is. But I don't know about that. And then up in the northwest suburbs, I think in Batavia, I think there's a Fermi lab up there somewhere, and I heard that they have a collider up there too. But also, back when they were developing all this stuff, that's the history of it, was at the University of Chicago or Illinois, one of the ones that are right there, right by the lake, is where Fermi and Oppenheimer and all them guys did their first experiment under the bleachers in one of the gymnasiums of nuclear fusion or fission, whatever one it was, And they basically built a ramshackle thing, lined it with bricks. I don't even think there was like a lot of lead and everything, and they were going to do the first experiment to make fusion or fission, whatever it was.
Yeah, it's called the Chicago Pile. It was the world's first man-made nuclear reactor, and it was built on Rackett's Court under the abandoned west stands of the original Alonzo Stagg Field Stadium at the University of Chicago. It was the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, and it was initiated on December 2nd of 1942.
Correct.
And it's actually a National Historic Landmark now.
Oh, yeah, you could go right there. They got a big monument right there, and there's nothing around it, but they show the exact spot where it is. But right before they threw the switch, they both looked at each other, and they're like, guys, should we do this? Because we really don't know what's going to happen. So that's pretty wild. But what I heard, getting back to that Red Gate Woods deal, and then me and my buddy were just walking around somewhere, and there's perfectly circular ponds. I mean, perfectly circular. Grabbed a big old dead stick, big old tree, was at least 10 feet long, right at the edge of it. And I'm putting this stick down 10 feet long, right at the edge of this circular pond. And it just went straight down like it's a cylinder. So I'm thinking, boy, this is like one of the cooling ponds. And then in the mid-'90s or early 90s, I heard that they came out there and abated it all and took it all out of there. But the only thing I want to say to all of this is I'm sure if they dumped it there, I'm sure they didn't do it the right way. They dumped it and got the WTF out of there. You know what I'm saying? So... And me and my buddy are looking around, and all of a sudden I just started calming down, and I'm like, well, all the animal life looks okay. All the trees look okay. Everything that's growing, everything looks fine and dandy. So, I know that is probably bad for our body. There is no doubt about it. But just the same, we are powerful entities, and our bodies are just unbelievable compensating organisms. And along with knowing that, in keeping your mind strong and solid and, you know, doing all your detoxins and this, that, and the other, I think we can all get through this, because back in the 50s, NASA sent some big rocket up there and shot barium, or it blew up or something. We all have radiation in us from that. Then there was all the 300 above ground tests in Nevada or whatever, and, you know, we're all west of that, I mean, east of that, and so, you know, we're all downwind from that. So we've been bathing in this stuff forever. Then there was Chernobyl. So, I mean, I don't know. I think if we live in love and not fear, I think we'll get all through this one way or another, you know. So that's really just all I wanted to throw out there, because every time I go by that place, Redgate Woods, I always stop and I think of all the souls that were lost in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and I always send good energy.
Hey, Shane, go ahead and finish your thought, because you got cut off at the break.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I can't hear the music coming in, and I am a big old windbag here. But as I was saying, if anyone could pick the story up, like I say, there's a big major arterial road that goes through there now. And every time I go by that road there where they, you know, first did all of this stuff, you know, the inception of this insanity, I always I just ponder, I meditate, and I just try to give all the positive energy in the world in, you know, the cleansing of everything from the earth to all the people that were vaporized in Japan, because some of them souls probably don't even know that they were vaporized, you know, just like you look at the pictures and you just see nothing but a shadow of where someone was. I mean, it just turns me inside out. And, you know, who knows, maybe their souls are just walking around and they don't even know what happened. And I think that I'm here walking around, and if I got some energy that's in me, I always just try to, you know, and just, you know, try to release their souls, or, you know, forgive us, forgive them, forgive us land, work with us, and try to, on my little behalf here, I try to just, you know, make amends for what we have let out of Pandora's box. So
thanks
that's
for
what I got.
sharing. Thanks for sharing that. And I feel much the same as you do. There's so much of this is out of our control, but what we can control is how we react to it and how we treat others. And part of that is sharing and carrying concerns for our fellow man and alerting them to this situation so they can deal with it too. I understand that we have Michael Fazio on the line. Hi, Michael.
Good afternoon, ladies. And that's an interesting story, Shane. Thanks for sharing that with us.
So you've been pretty outspoken about Obama recently.
Okay, well, for the people that don't understand the reasoning why I'm so outspoken, I can assure you that I have done quite a bit of research, much beyond the research that's possible to do with Fukushima. And in my studies, during the course of writing a book, I discovered what everybody has come to be known as pictographs on the $1 bill. And I have published a book called Angels on the Ark by Michael Fazio. And in this book, I have postulated that there is a pictograph of a nuclear detonation over the eagle's head on the $1 bill. And that this pictograph is part of a series of pictographs that date back not hundreds of years, and certainly not from the year 1934, but I believe that these pictographs are a story in pictures or glyphs, if you would call them, similar to that of the Rosetta Stone and the hieroglyphs at the Great Pyramid. And I believe that they put these on the $1 bill to tell the story of our civilization. And this is documented in my book, that during the course of my discoveries, I believed that they were going to destroy this world with nuclear fissionable type materials and radiological catastrophes. And when I did my research into this field of nuclear physics, so to speak, I discovered that they never believed, never from day one when they started building nuclear power plants, they never believed that they would ever come to a methodology in which to alleviate the waste. And they knew exactly by how many nuclear power plants, when the radiological wastes themselves would reach a point where there was too much of it to store in the salt mines and in underground tombs, and that they also knew that these tombs would have to be maintained for not hundreds or tens of thousands of years, but in some cases 50 to 100,000 years. And this is stuff that the United States government and all the governments of the world have known since the 1940s when they started doing this. So I believe that they knew that this was going to occur, and they're using these catastrophes as a methodology in which to institute what Shane might call, what I call Agenda 21, but in fact, the depopulation of the planet Earth, because there's nothing that you can do about the amount of radiological material that's stored, and they can't maintain servicing the entombed radiological particles. They can't do it. I mean, they can't maintain one nuclear power plant, aka Fukushima. It's just not possible. It could be thousands of years with today's technology before they can get those, if the cores did do a melt-through, did do a melt-through. But the point is, it's 25 years for Chernobyl, and Chernobyl had, we're going to use round numbers, but Chernobyl had 20 metric tons or thereabout of fissionable materials in that reactor. At Fukushima, we had 123,000 metric tons of fissionable materials and the storage containers that were in them. And when the explosion occurred, they got blown up into the atmosphere and into particles the size of a .38 caliber bullet. And that there's no way for them to retrieve the pellets or the particles, so they just placed dirt on top of it, which means that for 10,000 years, or these particles will be part of the soil, and through the permeation of water through the soil, these particles will wash down into the seas, and this is accumulative. So that's my theory, but I have done the research to know that they can't stop this event from taking place, and they're not telling us the truth, because I own a barge and crane company at one point, and the pumps that they were using to put water on the plants themselves were upwards of 300,000 or 3 million gallons a day of water were pumped into those buildings, and none of it was stored, and all of it went into the sea. So when they say 17 tons, which is 17 cubic yards, basically, of water leaked into the ocean, they forgot to tell you about the 3 million gallons of water a day from each one of those fire pump trucks that were pumped over the reactors to cool them off. And my best estimate was 2 billion gallons, excuse me, not 20, but 2 billion gallons of water became radioactive, and they never mentioned that. So I know that I'm a little bit more long-winded than most, and that's my theory. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss this with you. Thank you.
No, you bring up a couple good points. One is, now that we know that the suppression chamber under Reactor 2 has been destroyed, all the water that they have been dumping on that reactor has been going into the cracks in the ground. They didn't even know. They expected there to be, 29 feet more, because those reactors are huge. They're actually some of the largest reactors in the world, and that site has more spent fuel in this facility than any other place in the world, too. I mean, if you were going to take out a plant, that would be the one to take out. And you can't help but see some of the conspiracies that have been proposed. In fact, we're going to have Lauren Murray on next week. She's actually found a correlation between some of Obama's, the Secretary of Energy, the guy that was appointed, Stephen Chu, and this other guy, Dr. Stephen Koonin, who was a BP scientist. His specialty was oceans. Those two are taking orders from the city of London, according to her, and she's actually mapped this out in meticulous detail, and you can find that interview on Exopolitics YouTube channel. I'm going to watch it this weekend before we talk to her. But you bring up Chernobyl, too. A lot of people don't know this, but that sarcophagus is ready to collapse. In fact, they knew that 10 years ago. And all the fuel that's still left in that facility is now turning to dust. So if that roof ever caves in, you know, the hundreds of tons of concrete is going to fall on that and throw up a radioactive dust cloud that is just going to be huge. And Russia has been asking for money from other countries to redo that roof for 10 years, and they haven't been able to raise the funds. Nobody will help them. We're too busy building bombs. We're too busy spreading democracy and causing birth defects and all the children in the countries that we bomb. I mean, you know, where are the priorities here? They don't care about the people at all. There's no protection. Everything's covered up. And it's just disgusting. And I'm really glad that there's people like you, Michael, that really speak their mind on this issue. Because we need more people to stand up and say, look, this is what's going on. And you better wake up to this.
This is exactly what you just said, that they won't alleviate the money for the Russian nuclear power plant, knowing how catastrophic the event could be. This is why I believe it is the planned annihilation of the species, and that this has occurred in many different times throughout the history of this civilization.
Thanks so much for coming on today. I also want to thank Jules for being here with me every day, and Kurt for helping us out with our clips, and JJ from yesterday.
Miss Milky.
Miss Milky, thank you for being here.
And
also
Shane.
Next week we'll have Lauren Murray and Matt Stein, who wrote an article called 400 Chernobyls about sun flares. We'll be bringing him on. So come back and listen, and we'll get our phones fixed in the meantime.